Okay, so I want to start with my young protege was discussing before, and I asked him last night. But I don't know. Well, MT doesn't have school on Friday, so I guess that's how he gets away with being up at 2 a.m. But so I asked him last night. I didn't ask him to answer the question. I asked him, do you believe in Gilui Elio? Gilui Elio revealed himself to Chazal. And he got very, very nervous. And he said, why do I have to answer your question? And I said, you don't have to answer your question to me, but you have to answer your question to yourself. Many years ago, I taught in a school, which I won't name, where the head of the Talmud department, in a meeting, this is an ostensibly Orthodox school, in a meeting said, the teachers' meeting said, we all know that Gilui Elio is a myth, and it didn't take place. And Chazal never spoke to Eliyahu Navi, but there's some sort of mashal involved. And I was taken aback. I was astonished that somebody, maybe you believe that in your heart of hearts, but to say that we all believe it, and then I was thinking, how could such a person ever be mechanech to Yiras Shamayim? I don't understand how it works. There's no direct connection between Yiras Shamayim and this person. Why is that? So as I explained to the fellow last night, Chazal tell us matter-of-factly in many, many places that they had Gilui Elio. They were talking to Eliyahu Navi in this place, in that place. So that gives us two options. Either Chazal were very, very holy, in which case we have to give their words special credence, or they're liars. In which case, we have to assume that they could lie about everything, and the entire Masorah falls apart. I asked this once, I tried to corner Rabbi Slifkin on this issue once, whether he actually believes in Gilui Elio or not. And he also refused to answer the question. So refusing to answer the question usually has a connotation to it. When you plead the fifth, there's a reason why people plead the fifth. So so that is an issue. If one doesn't believe that Chazal were holy, then our whole religion falls apart. Because everything has to do with what Chazal told us. And Chazal told us from the vantage point of the holiness which they had. And this is when people say that Ravina Rabashi Sof Hara, so the idea is that there was a special period in Klal Yisrael which came to a close at that time, for whatever reason. And the reason why we accept Chazal, according to certain people on the left, is only arbitrary. It's not because they were any different than you and me. If that's the case, it all falls apart. So therefore, it's something which I found is a litmus test of a person's emunah and Yiras Shamayim, is their belief in Gilui or not, or disbelief in Gilui Elio. Now, even if you don't believe in Gilui Elio, don't tell me. Now, to speak about the issues which correlated to that are issues which come up in very often. And of course, the issue which got Rabbi Slifkin in trouble was the mabul. It's actually my fault, indirectly, because I was having an argument with him on a blog. Before there were blogs, there were email groups called Avoda. You can look it up, about the historicity of the mabul. And he actually, the argument was with Mark Shapiro, and then Slifkin got involved, and he took the position that the mabul did not take place. And he made the mistake of taking this position in public. So I didn't reveal it to anybody, but it got around, and the rest was history. So the idea, the mabul doesn't bother many Balei Tshuva or many people that I've found, but it is a question, again, of Emunas Chachamim, and in a different way here, because there's an important position which we have to take, which is that history, more than science, is the basis of our emunah. Science is the basis of emunah, Kodesh Baruch Hu, but history is the basis of specific Judaism. And that, of course, goes back to Kuzari and all those which are allied with him in that perspective. So therefore, it's imperative that we assume that the Torah and Chazal are not lying to us when they're telling us historical things. They can make mistakes. It's possible. I'll tell you what, I have two great issues in Emunah personally. My personal issues in Emunah, the first one is saying Talmud Livracha. Because How can we repeat Shmona Esrei if we know that the Saint Talmutar is based on the Julian calendar, which is off now by 15 days? So I don't know why we don't adjust it. I don't know. I'm tempted if somebody asks me to go according to the Gregorian. You guys are aware of this, right? So on December, the gap keeps getting longer. It's really supposed to be November 21st. We're supposed to start saying Saint Talmutar 60 days after. You have a response?
Well, yeah, I mean, no, it's somebody asked it to Rav Moshe, but it's not new that it was off.
It wasn't that off at that time. Now it's very off. Now, yeah, but now we have other problems which relate that, which is Pesach not coming out in the spring. So the problem of the calendar is one issue. It's not a big issue. The other issue which I have is Shmuel and Navi and Shaul. Because if you take Chazal say that Shaul was king for 2 years. It's a pasuk says Ben Shana Shaul b'Malko, and he was melech for 2 years. So the question, if you take that pasuk pshuto, most of Shmuel Aleph does not make sense, because it's clear that when David comes in, he's not 28, and then when he becomes king, he's 30. When he comes into the picture, he's much younger, and there are many things which happen in Shmuel Aleph. So it's interesting because Josephus says that Shaul was king for 20 years, and that 18 years where Shmuel was alive, and 2 years where Shmuel was no longer alive. So historically, that is makes more sense to me, and it's a problem I have with the psukim. I'm a person who's allowed to have problems with psukim, especially in Nach, not in Chumash so much, but in Nach you're allowed to have problems. But in terms of getting back to 165 years. That, when there is obviously the famous or infamous, from my perspective, approach of Rabbi Schwab, which is that Chazal orchestrated a grand cover-up, and the cover-up was so utterly complete and total that we have no idea what happened during that time that they covered up, and that this was something which they did in order to preserve the integrity of the Masorah in the face of something which we don't know. Rabbi J.J. Schachter has an article in which he criticizes Rabbi Schwab for his perspective on history about something else. That Schwab says there's no reason by tzaddikim to tell about their chesroinus, and perhaps this is in sync with this sheet over here, but I think it's usher to say like Rabbi Schwab. Because again, I'd much rather say Chazal made a mistake for 165 years, even though I don't think you can lose 165 years. But I'd much rather say they made a mistake for 165 years than saying that they covered up. Because our entire Masorah is based on assuming that there are people who are Yerei Shamayim who delivered an authentic historical account of what went on. And if they covered up 165 years, they might have made up Matan Torah. So therefore, whatever answer you have to 165 years, please don't use Rabbi Schwab's answer. Yeah?
Just quickly tell us what the 165 years thing is.
Oh, I thought everybody knew that. So there is a gap between this. When is the first Beis Hamikdash destroyed? What? 333. No, it's secular. 586, right? So 586, he's an Apikoros. So 586, 586 is the secular date for the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. But we hold the first Beis Hamikdash, second Beis, and that 70 years later, 516, is when the second Beis Hamikdash began to be rebuilt. And but we hold that the second Beis Hamikdash, Chazal tells us, lasted for how many years? 420. So assuming it was destroyed around 70, it's really 68, but assuming it's destroyed 70, so it was built around 350 BCE, right? So you have a gap of 166 years between the secular dating and the Jewish dating, between Churban Bayis Rishon and our perspective on when Bayis Sheni began. So that's 165 missing years. Who asked this question? Who asked? So you understand that difference? So that's major. There's a major issue for some people, how to reconcile those two things. They bring that up all the time as being something which is an issue with Seder Olam and our history, and if our history is wrong, how can we trust it on anything else? So again, if RIETS theoretically was a mistake, it doesn't sound, not this one. But if they're a mistake by a few years, fine. As long as nobody is lying, I'm okay with that. So, yeah.
You say that authenticity of Chazal must be true. You're saying that across the board, halakha, gada,
Agada is the Ramban. You know the Ramban, right? The Ramban in the Disputation says that in Agadata we're not meshubah to Chazal because those are sermons, right? And
When we have halacha and agada,
so it depends. I think the rule of thumb is that a person, and people ask me, how do you get this rule of thumb? And I say, I don't know. It's kind of intuitive. But it's intuitive to know how that certain Agadatas, like Rabba Bar Bachana and Baba Basra, are clearly Mishalim, and other Agadata, like the history of Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni, are meant to be historical. It's hard. I never came up with a brilliant theory as to how you distinguish between which are which. I just have a chush for it. Yeah, which may be wrong. But that's, yeah.
I don't know if I talk about this now, but 165 years in reconciliation, not the theological issues of it. I'm just curious what tack you take. Do you take Alexander Hull's approach? Do you take
That the Persian kings are off. That they made
with the archival documents? What do you do with all the stars and all the
I do. So the thing is like this. Again, this is not what the area. At some point, my mind stopped processing this because. But I there's an article, Jewish Action, a few years ago about this, and it's worth referring back to that. And the Dr. Chafetz and the what? Yes, and the Chafetz approach is based on Velikovsky.
Yeah, I know that.
And I like Velikovsky, but perhaps because I'm mad myself, but I like Velikovsky. So so I think that he has his. Yes, he contends that historians get things wrong all the time. Yeah, it's a sad thing about the ancient civilizations. They didn't know they were supposed to count down to 0. So therefore, we don't have good dating unless we make a lot of hunches. So therefore, and again, you have to take certain inscriptions as being authentic, and you have to regard Herodotus as almost a god. So then you have many more problems than if you don't accept those premises. But you're much more of an expert. You should be giving the talk. No, it's not an easy question to dismiss.
Give a description. We have just natural stars, natural archival documents.
Right, I've never seen any document which has convinced me that there's a problem. You would have to. My email is ygbeckofer@gmail.com. 2 H's and 1 F. Email me the document and we'll deal with it. Okay? Yeah. I haven't gotten to a whole list of issues yet, but go ahead.
Let's go back to the beginning and both of it and in terms of the options of, well, either they say the truth or not. What do you, and I'm not saying this for the sake of being vague or devil's advocate, but what do you say about that it can be allegorical, for example, like the Rambam saying on the Malachim, like Malachim point over, but it's allegorical.
So when people say, so first of all, yeah, so I sorry for the Malachim. I don't believe it. I don't believe that when people use the word allegorical there, they are being precise, even though that's what the word. What the Rambam is saying is that if you saw Yaakov that night when he was struggling with the angel, he was going like this, like that, wrestling with thin air. But there was, because you could not see the mouth, and Yaakov only saw it in a vision. But the vision for him was as real as reality. So the Rambam says it's allegorical. It means he's saying it can't be that a malach takes on a human form. So therefore, it has to be a chazon. But chazon for Avram with the 3 malachim was real for him because he was at that level of nevuah. For Yaakov, it was real. For Yitzchak says, Rashi brings down that when Esav came in, the two interpretations was under him or under Esav. But according to the interpretation was under Esav, they saw things which we didn't see. So that is that. There it's allegorical only in the sense that it didn't take place in physical reality; it took place in a vision. The other, in terms of the Mabul, I don't have any problem with the person localizing the Mabul or saying what didn't take place here, didn't take place there. The Gemara Svachim says didn't take place there. It's Yisrael. That doesn't bother me as long as you say it took place. How then you can find your own reconciliation of the Psukim. That doesn't concern me. But you have to believe that it took place in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. What? Everything to Lech Lecha is in Torah is not literal. That's their svara. Only the Torah begins with Lech Lecha. But when I was growing up in elementary school in Hank, they taught us the Sheis Mebrachos, and then they skipped to Lech Lecha. So they still do that in day schools. So I guess maybe Yeah, that perspective. Yeah.
With both the issue of Elio and Mabel, as long as your approach is that I have no negias, it's either a mashal or it's a historical reality, and maybe it's allegorical, maybe it's not. But I don't, I have no problem saying that maybe it happened. Is it so bad to say that it was, maybe it was allegorical?
Yes.
Why?
Because they portray it as being reality. They talk about the Amora to whom Elio appeared, Rav, I think it was, I don't remember. But Elio once used to appear every week, and then he came once a month because he did. That's not an allegory. Unless you're going to say, you could say it's a chazoin. It's fine. You could say it happened in a vision, but you can't say it didn't take
So
place.
it's just not mistaber to say it's allegorical.
Right.
So is it acceptable to say that Uncle Lech Lecha everything is allegorical?
No, it doesn't, because again, Chazal, we have no Masorah that way. You can say the first parak of Parashas, yes, Chazal tells us is allegorical. It doesn't tell us what actually happened. But beyond the first parak of Parashas, you can't say that anymore.
Well, the second parak, right?
No, the first parak.
Gan Eden,
No,
no?
that did take place. There's a question whether the Nachash is allegorical,
Right.
but not the episode
Why
itself.
the first parak?
Because the first parak,
it's a prayer.
no, but it doesn't describe. We know that it doesn't describe a process we should understand. The Chazal say, until the end of the first parak is of Parashas, Kav Elokim Haster Dovar. It's concealed. Yeah.
Aside from the fact that it's unintelligent, I guess, is there any violation of anything by believing that? Is there any violation of the Will Ikrim or any
Believing what?
by believing, let's say, at the beginning is allegorical?
Well, no, I don't. I think then your whole Masorah falls apart. There's no specific violation involved. You can drink his wine, but I believe the whole Masorah falls apart.
So you can say that the entire thing's allegorical.
Right. Why stop at Lech Lecha? The Rashba has a tshuva about.
If somebody does stop at Lech, so
Yeah, but so the Rashba has a tshuva. You're right, because the Rashba says a tshuva about people who say Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are allegories, and he says to that person michutz lamachane. So I guess maybe if you go to Lech Lecha, we can still drink your wine. Yeah. So I wanted to shift to another issue. I have many issues I want to discuss, and it's getting late. But the major issues which people have a problem with is, of course, Amalek. That's the major issue that people have, is Mechias Amalek. How can the Torah allow genocide? Okay? So, first of all, people are always misinformed. And nobody knows the Rambam. What does the Rambam say about Amalek? Since you're in YU, you know Rambams by heart. So what does the Rambam say about Amalek? What? Allowed to convert, exactly. Not just convert, they don't have to convert to Judaism. They have to be what? Geri Toshav, Shem Mitzvahs. They don't have to become Jews. So the minute they accept Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach, we don't kill any of them. Also, that there's no mitzvah to kill Amalek as individuals. There's there's common myth that Reb Chaim Volozhner strangled the person that's Siman Amalek. Who heard that story? Anybody? Okay, so that's a myth because it's against halacha. Because you can't strangle an individual Amaleki. You can only kill them in the course of warfare. Once there's war, okay, then you can take out your frustrations. But without war, there's no permission to kill Amalek. So that's part. Those are a couple ways to deal with Amalek. It's also important because this also is relevant to Shiva Amamim. That one learned, but most people ask the question, have never learned Shoftim. So if you learn Shoftim, even just the first parak, you know that Bnei Yisrael never destroyed the Shiva Amamim. It never took place. Why did it never take place? That I'm not sure. But we clearly see that this mitzvah, which was given to us, was never actually, except like in Yericho, in a couple of places, was never actually something which Bnei Yisrael followed through on. It's interesting because Rabbi Avraham Eli Kaplan, when he deals with Rabbi Avraham Eli Kaplan is my personal hero. Most of you probably never heard of him. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Berlin. He died very young, at the age of 34. And you look him up online. It was an incredibly inspiring figure, and one could come to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu just through the inspiration of a figure like Rabbi Avraham Eli Kaplan. So he writes in his piece on Amalek, he says, it's interesting that the mitzvah of Zecher Uchias Amalek specifically takes place on Shabbos, when it's us to go perform it. Right? But if we really wanted you to be Moicha Amalek, we should be done on a weekday. Right? But then you can go to war. Why do we read on Shabbos? So his point is that there is the mitzvah Mechias Amalek has much more to do, certainly Bisman Hazeh, with the spiritual war as opposed to a physical war. There's another thing, which is that when I believe, and this is a big machlekes I had with Rabbi Schiller from MTA, we have a debate also on the web somewhere, whether history indicates the Yad Hashem or not. So Rabbi Schiller holds that you cannot perceive, actually Ratzon Hashem. You cannot, whether you can perceive Ratzon Hashem from history. So Rabbi Schiller believes you cannot perceive Ratzon Hashem through history. I believe you can perceive Ratzon Hashem through history. The Satmar Rebbe clearly believed you cannot perceive Yad Hashem through Ratzon Hashem through history, otherwise you would be a Zionist. So the question is whether you can perceive Ratzon Hashem, and I believe yes, you can. On a macro level, if you look at history, you can perceive Ratzon Hashem. And Sancheriv coming and having been mebalvel v'umos is a major changing point in history. HaKadosh Baruch Hu basically told us everything which it says in the Torah now about those Shiva Amim as Drosh v'Kabel Schar. And clearly since that time, even before that, it didn't happen. But certainly since that time, it doesn't happen. And I believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes patterns through history relative to that generation. Now I have an uncle, his name was Rabbi Emmanuel Shochet, Allah Shalom. Rabbi Shochet said to me, is a very distinguished Lubavitcher thinker, is my mother, Allah Shalom's brother, and he said to me once that the Baal Shem Tov, more than he was successful in the revolution of Hasidus, was successful in the revolution of Hashgacha Pratis. And that because not everybody became a Chassid, but everyone now believes in Hashgacha Pratis. And among the Rishonim, most Rishonim, this question also only comes up in YU. Among that, because only in YU they know the Rishonim, but different than Nachronim. But this is the question of the Hashgacha Pratis comes up here frequently, and the question is, the Rishonim, almost all of them, did not believe in Hashgacha Pratis. And after the Baal Shem Tov, everybody believes in Hashgacha Pratis. There's a quote from the Rebbe Rabbunan Pashischa. He says, if you have a stick in the sand, and you pick the stick out of the sand, and the sand particles fall back into the hole, if you don't believe that every particle of sand goes right now to a place HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes there right now that it should go, you're not Bikoris. Which of course makes the Rambam not Bikoris. So yes. Right. So obviously there are different. So what do we do with this? With this big Hashgacha Pratis question. So I once had another debate with Rabbi at MT, who's no longer there. Which is why I'm no longer there. So he said he was a Chadian. Chadians are a sect in Judaism which is very problematic. Sect of Orthodox Judaism. So the what? Well, they're very strong. They're very strong Maimonideans. So, for example, anybody who believes that when it says, according to them, it says Ava Rabba Avtano Shem Elokeinu, right? That describes to God emotion. If you believe that that's true, you're not Bikoris. Okay? That's very problematic because it's hard to be mechanech kids and say, we're telling you God loves you, but He really doesn't. Yeah, it's a very big problem. So we're having a discussion, and I said, I believe, but similar to what I said before, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calibrates his relationship to the world based in different periods, based on different perspectives. What's appropriate for that door. Now, what the Baal Shem Tov could have done. What could have happened in the relationship between the Baal Shem Tov and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one of two things. Either the Baal Tzaddik Greis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, and when the Baal Shem Tov introduced this idea into Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael accepted it en masse, so we forced Hashem's hand, so to speak, and now he has to be Mashgiach with Hashgacha Pratis, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided, now I'm going to change things and make things work according to Hashgacha Pratis, and I'll send the Baal Shem Tov to bring that idea into the world. And this story I heard many years ago from Rosh Hashiva, and I was learning Shalvim, and I don't know if there's any source for the story, but it's a cool story, that the Kotzker once said that, it says that, of course, the Rambam didn't believe in Shadim, and that the Gra says that philosophia ruah also, that it was, of course, they're Shadim. So the Kotzker said, when the Rambam said there were no Shadim, Tzaddik Goyz HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, they ceased to exist. when the Gra said there are Shayim, they came back into existence. So, of course, that's some humor in that, but there is a notion of that there are different kufos, which have different anhagos, which change over time. Okay, so that's that. The same thing is true again, as I said about my perspective about San Cherev. Now this changing. Now this leads to the other issue, which most people have, is the issue of avdus, of slavery in Judaism. Judaism seems to be pro-slavery. Yeah.
Wait, I was just a little bit confused how we answered the issue with Mechiyas Amalek because
It's not real. It's not. There is Mechiyas Amalek is a very rare occurrence, which almost never took place. One time it happened with Piyat Dibur with Sholem Melech, and even then it wasn't all of Amalek, as we know. It was one isolated city.
And also the issue about Aaron, meaning there were still mitzvos and still like ideals, and it sounds to me very problematic to say like, oh yeah, there's mitzvah to destroy the Shiva Aaron, but like you just look at Job it didn't happen.
No. It's like okay, I hear it's problematic, but the idea, the way I understand, it's like Ben Sora Moreh. Ben Sora Moreh, Irani Dachas. Chazal say that there are lessons. Everything in Torah is meant to be a lesson. If you understand it the way, understand it that everything in Torah is meant, like the Ramban says at the end in the Parashas Kiteitzei, that lo nidon mitzvah tzarif b'enes abrios, it's given in order to refine us. So Torah is given to refine us, and there are lessons to be learned about how to deal with evil from these parshios, even if they don't ever actually in practice, and we never expect them to have it in practice. That's how I understand them.
Does it make it so much better to say that this ideal genocide never took place versus that it did take place? I mean, still.
It seems that it does make it better from personal experience. Okay, for you it might not work. For other people it works. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, like you said before, you mentioned Yericha and Ai, and half of the issue was talking about wiping out entire cities in Eretz Yisrael.
But it's not. Obviously, there was a kufa in which it happened for whatever reason.
I mean, it's not to address it. Maybe it makes it more palatable.
Right, and we have to address it. And you have to say that there was certain kufa in which the evil was so widespread that they had to take drastic measures.
There's going to be an answer which people are not going to like, that you have to eventually get to.
Yes, but they don't have to like the answer as long as there is an answer.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to like it. So we say you don't have to like it. You have to understand it.
Right. You're basically just saying it's not a focal part of Yiddishkeit.
Right. Okay. That's not what I said. I didn't say it's not a focal point in Jewish culture.
No, I mean.
I said that one has to adjust one's focus.
Right.
One has to look at its proper
It's
perspective.
very limited. It's not.
Yeah.
Just getting back to what you said earlier about Gilui Eliyahu quickly. The Ramchal, the Gra, the Mechaber, and numerous other Anashim Yirei Mushlim we look up to all also claim to have had equivalents of Gilui Eliyahu.
Oh, I was going to mention that. I forgot. Same thing about the Baal Shem Tov. Yeah, the Baal Shem Tov has a letter which he writes explicitly that he went up to Shammai, and he said, and he went to Rosh Hashanah Eliyas Neshama, and he went to the different Eicholos in Shammai, and he went to the Eichol Mashiach, and he said, so the Bavitcher song only they leave up the last part of it. And then it says Yedu Kulam Liyachid Yichudin Kamoscha, which is the depressing part of it. They don't sing about that part. But the point is that yes, either the Baal Shem Tov was a charlatan or he's telling the truth. There aren't two ways about it. So yes, if you can say I'm a true misnagid in the true spirit of whoever, and I told that Baal Shem Tov was a charlatan, well, you have to accept he was a holy person. The only two, it's binary.
So in that case, since all of that very clearly argue in many ways, for example, on the Rambam's worldview.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you said earlier that the Rambam's worldview is one which is acceptable to hold.
Absolutely.
So then,
You have to. Paradox is good and fun. Judaism is full of paradoxes. That's what makes Judaism so exciting. You want to be boring like the other religions? That's my perspective. Okay, I'm not sure. But other people might find it disquieting, but I find that tremendously comforting that there's so many paradoxes. What?
why is it acceptable to hold like the Rambam?
Because of that chazal, which says, Elu ve'el, you find your derech in Judaism, and if you're an Oived Hashem, and you are Yoreh V'Shalom, your practice and your outlook will be remarkably similar to the guy who was a chassid.
But there's no Elu ve'elu about facts, according to most Rishonim.
Yeah, but you're right, but it's not with you Gimel Korei Emunah. So therefore, I don't have to figure out whether it's factual or not.
But it is hashkafically problematic, as you said, to call the Baal Shem Tov a charlatan, and that's what you're doing if you hold like the Rambam on anything.
Why go like Rambam? Why?
if you hold like the Rambam that astrology doesn't work, that
Yes.
astrology is that. So then, if I find people like Legra who are stated by their close comedian, like had Gilui Aliyah,
Right. What's Gilead have to do with astrology?
who very clearly seem to hold of the efficaciousness of astrology.
Eliyahu, what's that said? If Eliyahu never reveals himself to you, it doesn't mean that you're right about astrology.
If I
We understand that we have a person. We teach in our yeshivas that Rashi and the Ramban were both written Baruch HaKodesh. Right? The Baal Shem Tov says every sefer to the Marshal is in Baruch HaKodesh. Obviously, he didn't mean the secondary Rishon. You know, there's a story about Rav Schachter brings it down about the Rav met Shaul Lieberman once, and Shaul Lieberman was told about some sort of Gaon. He found some obscure Gaon, was some tremendous Chiddush, and the Rav said to him, the Zayda knew how to learn better than many Gaonim. So there are, they're Gaonim and they're Gaonim. So then we show, but the jury is still out on astrology, and therefore you can believe. We don't know. You can look at it and find your perspective, and believe accordingly. And it has its amazing thing, but it's not one of the Gimli Kari Emunah. It's fine. I'm not going to make you happy. I'm not trying to make you happy. But it's interesting. The Rambam says it's also for non-Jews to be mechadish a religion. It's not also for Jews to be mechadish a religion. as long as you adhere to the Gimli Korim of the Rambam, the field is open.
You said one comment before about Elu ve'elu, about facts. Isn't there a Gemara in Gittin that talks about that there was Hashem says Elu ve'elu to when the focus about Pilagish Begillah?
Yeah.
So does that mean that there's Elu ve'elu about facts, or there isn't?
Sometimes, not always. Sometimes, yeah, could be. Yeah. They can be reconciled. By the way, if you want to have a lot of fun, be really radical, you can say that history was not determined until these Amoraim came along, and they retroactively had an impact on what happened at Pilagish Begillah.
Isn't that Torah and Yisrael Hebrew?
What? Yeah.
We're saying, for instance, the Chiluk says, if you do believe such an intense to be Mishkach practice, that's not because
Not because. No. Yeah, it says it's not logical. Okay, that's not the same thing. Hashkal process is not an issue. It's not when you give a Karim.
What is the Rambam draw? Rambam holds, for instance, the whole Marom is Hakolos, that's all an allegory, right?
It's not allegory. It took place. It was a vision.
So the Rambam.
Allegory usually means I tell you once upon a time there was a fairy, and the fairy took away the tooth and gave you a quarter, right? That's allegorical. It's an allegory to your parent. But this type